Hey everyone, it's Julian. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make hard acid techno, Nico, Moreno, Brecc, WNDRLST, that style. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video is available at the top of the description on my website. It's a really high quality template for a very accessible price. This is designed so that you can get something really high quality and take your tracks to the next level. I promise you'll make the best track of your life if you grab this today. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. Enjoy, and let's dive in. Alright, so we're at 146 BPM, and we got, first thing up here is just a little side chain. Just this little click from a kick, and then we have the main kick. So, this was probably what took the most time of all of this. You know, when you're making this kind of a track, this just big, heavy, distorted kick like this is really like the foundation. Like, if you take it out, there's a lot, but it's not really filling up the spectrum as much as just this kick and bass are really. So you really have to put a lot of time into just this. And the way I made this is, it's basically this 199 kick sample creating 3 layers. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep your kick really concise. Like if you try to get, you know, say a low end layer and a mid layer and a high layer from 3 different kicks, for this style of kick, it's not going to sound very good. It's going to sound really forced and kind of like squashed together. But if you take one sample and just use it to create kind of like the whole thing, that's essentially what you want to do. So what we're doing here is, I've got the first one, which is most of what you're hearing, right? So that's the 909, just pretty clean. Going through this pedal distortion here, you can see I turned the sub on. There's a little tiny high pass from this filter here that is actually doing something to the sound. We have a low pass, so here's without this. And then with it. So this has an LFO on quarter notes going down, right? And then it actually also has an automation to kind of shape it. But what I noticed is that a lot of these kicks, like when I was listening to these tracks, they tend to have this very like kind of like subtle like decay while still ringing out. So how on earth would you possibly get that with like volume shaping, right? So that's where this low pass filter can come in, because we just automate that filter frequency to go down. And you can kind of get that as opposed to without it. It's subtle, but I was noticing this really made a difference in terms of getting this closer to what you actually hear in these tracks. Then we just have a little bit of utility, converting this to mono, and then we have the next layer. Now, this layer is pretty quiet, but I'll show you the whole mix. So here's the whole kick without it. With it. It's super subtle, but it just kind of gets a little detune with the main distortion from the kick. And this is another one of those things, like when I was referencing these tracks, you know, I would get this to sound really good, but then it just wouldn't sound quite like messy enough almost. And I think that's because there's a little bit of this typically blended in, just like this. All this is the kick going through some reverb and then distorted. High pass, and then a low pass, which has an LFO on it, kind of opening it up on quarter notes. And then side chain, and again, it just adds that like kind of messiness to the like low mids. And then we have this last layer, which is really just on there for a bit of punch, right? Because like when we have just the first two together, it's pretty good, but if you really put this up against a lot of these tracks, I think you would find it needs more of like a smack to it. So that's where this third layer comes in. And so all that is the kick, much shorter though. You can see, yeah, I brought down the fade like a lot on that. And then we're just distorting it heavily. And then high passing it. And then if you put that on top, you go from this to this. And because you use the same sample, it's going to all layer very nicely. And then on the group there, all we have is just a little bit of overdrive. And when I say a little, I mean literally the dry wet is at 5%. Here's without it. And then with it. It just glues everything a little bit more together. You just don't want that much. Like even more than this, even this is kind of pushing it, but I wanted it to really hit. You know, you really don't need that much. And then we just have an EQ, which is cutting at 46 hertz, so pretty high. But again, I noticed like when I was really listening to the low end in these tracks, they don't actually have that much like real sub frequencies. Like a lot of that stuff is just being cut straight out. And yeah, and then there's just a little mid boost. Then we have the hi-hat. So what this is it's two hi-hats layered together. We have like this punchy closed hi-hat. And then this like 909 open hi-hat. You'll notice also on each of these, I made them a little bit shorter because you really just want that tight, just like it feels more aggressive if it's like just really punchy like that and short than if you let it like kind of ring out, right? So that's the groove we're going for there. And then that's just going through a little bit of reverb, a little bit of saturation as well with the dry wet. You can see blended in there. I've got a high pass with this EQ, which is important because you really don't want it to get in the way of that. Even with these hi-hats, there can be some frequencies. And then we're just side chaining it. We have this little shaker. You can hear just kind of, you know, adding a little bit of rhythm to that. And then we move down here to these stabs. So I'll play you those with the kick so you can kind of hear it in the groove. So these are these three little stabs down here that I created. One of them is created just using white noise. You can see, yeah, it's just literally white noise in operator with a bandpass filter and a hard shaper, bit of reverb, high pass, and then it's being sidechained. But these other two here are actually breakbeats with quite a bit of processing on them. And they're both kind of using the same technique. So the first thing here is a high pass filter. I'll just turn everything off and just kind of go from scratch here. So yeah, we start with this, just this little chop from a breakbeat. Like literally just that. I high passed it. Right? And then I added this resonator on G so that, you know, you get a nice, it's in key with the kick as well. I've got this filter delay. A bit of overdrive. An auto pan. Which you can see is not panning this. I have the phase turned down to 0 and you're just getting this nice 16th note. Kind of right, so that just takes it to something else and also kind of helps get all those effects under control and more like rhythmic with the beat. And then we have a compressor side chaining it. And then the second breakbeat is pretty similar actually. It's kind of like the same idea, but just flipping it a little bit and doing it slightly different. So this is, again, just another chop from a breakbeat. We got some delay. Another resonator. Distortion. Auto pan, same thing where it's just affecting the volume, but this time 8th notes. High pass. And then side chain. And yeah, so all these just kind of fill in the background of the groove a little bit while everything else is going like very steady. These can just kind of be in there and add some like pulse to the beat. Then we have this. So this is kind of like this background sort of crunchy percussion. And this is all made using operator actually. So operator can actually be very good for making percussion, especially for this style. So what's happening is there's 3 different grooves coming together. We've got this, and then this. So the first one was happening. I'll turn off the effects and you can just hear what it's doing. It's this operator patch and it's going like that, like these 16th notes with a lot of space between them. This is just a bunch of sine wave FM to kind of create this crazy sound. Then we're high passing it, filter delay, and then distortion. So you can see that filter delay and the distortion really fill it in. We've got an auto filter with a half note kind of like rise, an amp, and then another high pass. And then that plays off of this, which is literally just some white noise playing on all the upbeats, like the same as the hi-hat, and then some delay, amp, and a high pass, and those two come together and kind of create like one loop like that. And then for the high end, it's just this super bright operator patch where you can see I pitched up the FM a lot, so you get that like really just digital bright, like almost like a bell. But it sits really nice. You can hear that in the whole mix. Like almost like a bell kind of punching through. And we've just got a bit of filter delay, high pass, and then a little bit of erosion on that. And then on the group, we have a bit of amp. Kind of glues it all together and makes it into one groove. It's being sidechained, and then we have a high pass. Then we have this little wavetable stab. So yeah, that's just hitting G. So that's just like all those stabs coming together, and then this one bright like high end. Just like that. And so this is made with Wavetable. It's a square wave with a bunch of noise unison, like literally all the way up, and that's how you're getting that like kind of crazy thing. We've got a bit of reverb and an amp after it, so you're getting like this really crunched reverb. Sidechain, and then a high pass, and then the last thing down here, the 303. Wouldn't be acid techno without that, right? So what we're doing here is it's actually just 3 notes across 2 different octaves. It's F, G, and G sharp, kind of mostly focused around G. And then you can hear those other 2 voices just give you some variation. And then it's also the groove created by the slides, like sliding down right there. Like that, or like that. And also notice the note lengths. Every note is kind of like a different length. And that creates a lot of that kind of like classic 303 sound. Like if you're having a hard time getting that with MIDI, you probably need to try messing with the note lengths more. So for the sound on this one, it's made with operator. It's literally just a saw wave, low pass filter with a bit of a soft shaper and some automation too to kind of go with what's happening in the MIDI. That's another trick. To get a better 303, try, writing the MIDI and then have the frequency be automated on the filter to kind of go with where that MIDI is going. And then we have an LFO also on that filter, moving it around even more. We got a bit of delay with some distortion afterwards, so it really brings out the delay. High pass filter, and then a sidechain, and that's it for the 303. And that's gonna be it for this one, guys. So I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, the samples, the MIDI, and the presets, as well as everything for the whole template is available at the top of the description on my website. Definitely don't miss out. Really appreciate the support, guys, and this is something you can grab right now to make the best music of your life today. This kick will really help you take your tracks to the next level. Thank you for the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.